Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel and welcome back to some more Warpforge. I had a nice little holiday break here and bringing you Belial Beatdown the day after Christmas, bringing the pain to all the folks on the Warpforge during their holiday break. And as I got to test and play on my phone, honestly I climbed smoothly to the point I'm at, almost 3,300 with Dark Angels. There's still 10 days left in the season. I'm still going to play them, and I think they are a faction to be reckoned with, and I think the target of a lot of fear and understandable critique about how powerful they can be. And we'll talk a little bit about that. But really today, what I want to bring you, as always in these deck guides, is basically an overview of the Warlord strengths, weaknesses of the deck list, as well as taking a look at actually some pretty diverse battle logs just to kind of show the power and some of the weaknesses of how the deck actually plays itself. But I'm here in my hood as Belial has his hood. So we're fully immersed in the Dark Angels so far. Just need to get this hoodie changed to green. So I'm just excited to be here. Thank you so much for the support. We are chipping away at that 1K subscriber goal. So if you like what you see here, feel free to follow along. And thanks for stopping by as always. So let's check out why Belial truly brings the beatdown. All right, so as always, I like to go over the Warlord, especially for new players, especially because this is a brand new faction that's really only been out for about a week, little more than that, I guess. And so Belial just kind of does everything. He covers all the bases, right? So his baseline ability, having Slay on a Warlord, right? Because Slay, for those who may not have seen, it does something after you destroy a unit and this unit survives combat. Obviously, your Warlord is going to survive combat for quite a bit in the game, and so that just means you're drawing a plethora of Dark Angels troops. And we'll kind of talk about how that goes into the deck building process, but baseline, you're going to kill their unit, you're going to draw a unit yourself. So obviously very powerful. And then Master the Deathwing, him in his scary little hoodie here, give +2 melee and 2 armor to your Warlord. Baseline, coming out the gate, you're hitting them for 4, you're taking 1, right? We're talking like better than Gordrang status, right? Because even though Gordrang heals, and obviously he's better in his own right, you're just in that straight up trade, you're doing 4 for 1, which is massive. So that's like kind of the upfront power. But then when you couple Master the Deathwing with your Slay ability, it means that you can remove troops that are pretty large, right? 4 health, right, is what you can clear up to just by yourself. And so then you're able to kill something, take it off the board, not take a lot of damage in return, right? And then be able to draw troops yourself. So Belial really just offers everything. And I'm sure there are other builds, but I really wanted to take advantage of teleportation in this build. I think that teleportation is kind of the not sleeper anymore, but was the ability that I was like, oh, is that going to be that good? Is that going to be that impactful? Like, it seems like secrets are really where it's at. But in these sort of tempo-based builds that are not trying to fill your deck with a bunch of secrets and draw them, Belial and I think Azrael in his own right are king of tempo and of just putting out a lot of threats, a lot of pressure, and especially with Belial continuing to draw those threats. So he's going to be swinging in really hard, and let's just get into the deck and talk about why it is the way it is. Here we have it, Belial Beatdown, and I will say I did quite a bit of editing of this deck, and I really feel great about where it wound up. So sometimes when I record these videos, I've had a little bit of testing, have a concept, all of that. I feel very confident that this is the build that I want, and I'd be interested to see, what other people are building with Belial and what are some of your favorite deck choices. But to me, I think really what I wanted to do was to be able to use his ability as much as possible and take advantage of the cards that you're drawing off of Slay. Means that I wanted the curve to be low, especially with the troops, right? And especially having teleportation, I want to be able to play those troops when I am drawing them. And so you'll see some of the play patterns you choose to Slay at certain turns, maybe Slay not at other turns, so you have that chance to draw those teleportation units. But I really think that he takes advantage of some of the kind of lower curve, less greedy sort of stuff, and I'll talk about why. So just kicking it off here really briefly for each card. Ancient Reliquary, he takes the best advantage. He has some of the best card advantage inherently drawing those troops. An Ancient Reliquary just loves a flank troop. It loves an armor troop. This is where you want to put health or trade up through your attack stats. And even when you have a Librarian, right, a 2/4/3, we'll talk about him, plop him down. If you Ancient Reliquary and they haven't taken the shield off, that's just 7 damage without retaliation, right? We'll see in one of the games how that ends up being a game winner. So Ancient Reliquary, I really feel like belongs in Belial Beatdown. I feel like that has just I've tried it with and without, and I really just love it as a 2 of in the deck. Inner Circle, I feel like this card is in every Dark Angels build, and there's no question why, right? I think part of the question was putting something on top and making it cost 1 less. Is that good? Teleportation makes it that good. And we'll talk a little bit more about that very soon. Sergeant Taman, knew this guy was going to be a great role player, particularly into Sisters, and I would say Junith. Sergeant Taman allows you to set the tempo, and we'll see that in one of the games. But it's a stealth unit. Yes, it can die to certain AoE effects and things like that. The quest progress in this build doesn't really matter. It does impact one of the games we'll look at. But it's just a cheap, efficient unit that you can't really interact with and allows you to play well into Eldar, into other stealth factions, or factions that really want to deploy troops kind of like 1 by 1 with Junith. So Sergeant Taman really puts in quite a lot of work. And the Rock, I have grown to love this card. I wasn't sure how good it would be, obviously because it's modal. It's obviously pretty strong because you get to choose when you want something in particular. Honestly, the sleeper ability here is the heal 3 to all your units. Because you've got armor, because you've got flankers, because you are also trading off your health as Belial to some degree, and in certain matchups, especially like Gordrang, having that +3 health actually matters so much. And I wouldn't have thought that would be my favorite mode on this card. But if this only said heal 3 to all your units, I don't know, maybe I would still play it, I'm not sure. But the fact that I can swap into a Sergeant Taman, I'm basically never using the quest progress in this build. But it's basically reads, make a Taman or heal your units, and it's excellent. Yeah, as you'll see. Black Knight, this is one of the cards that I got to reveal. It is just very cheap. It's efficient. 4 on a ranged unit just matters a lot. There is just quite a bit of stuff that has 4. 4 health, 5 health. And then if they're playing any units that don't have any ranged, which we have quite a bit of in Warpforge, Black Knight just gets to kind of run away. It's just cheap. It's efficient. It allows you to get the tempo back, and that's why we're playing it. Deathwing Assault. What a powerhouse of a card. +2/+2/+2, but also triggering the teleport abilities means that when you brick and draw your teleportation cards when you can't play them, it means that they get value back later. I thought about how comparing this to the Gene Stealers one that triggers uprising abilities and gives them invulnerable, this is just such a better card. You're getting stats, right? It's cheaper, and you're getting that value from the teleportation. So honestly, if they would love to do more stuff like this, you're going to have to use Deathwing Assault as the sort of template, I think. This thing is so powerful. I'm definitely going to talk a little bit about legendaries at some point in a video for this faction, just so people have an idea. I do think Deathwing Assault, specifically for Azrael and Belial, is pretty high up there. I don't know that it's going to be some of the first 2 or 3 that I would recommend, but it's definitely in the sort of top 5, and you will notice a power shift in your deck once this thing is doing the work, and we'll get to see it live in these games. Librarian, interestingly enough, right, this has agenda, it's getting me quest progress. This is just a good 3-drop. It's a 2/4/3 with shield, right? So they're going to have to make 2 attacks into it to likely clear it off the board. In the late game, sometimes just having it sit there and agenda is really nice. Sometimes it's just being a really nice ranged attacker. And I just think that the 3 drops in this faction are quite strong. And Library is included amongst them. I tried with and without, and I just really missed this card. And I've arrived at, I just think there should be 2 in this build. I think there should probably be 2 in Azrael builds. I think it combos really well. Obviously, and 2 in Asmodai. So if you were not sure about Librarian, I think he does go into every single Dark Angel build. Ravenwing Speeder, this is just a well-designed common. 3-drop, 2/3/4. It's got flying. It has an agenda that allows you to kind of do a little bit of ping damage. Yes, you get a quest point, which isn't so impactful for Belial. It's just a good body, right? There aren't a lot of great flanking flyers aside from Ultramarines. And so if you're not playing against them, Ravenwing Speeder just tends to do really well. We'll see it in one of the games how much value it actually provides, but it's just a great 3-drop. Getting into the 4 slot, everyone knows this guy. Deathwing Terminator. It's just a house of stats. Its teleportation ability is so good. You're just never upset to draw this card. And even if you do brick and you draw him and you can't play him, and you're able to activate him with the Deathwing Assault later, Deathwing Terminator is excellent. Master Lazarus, big old stat stick, has great synergy with teleport or slay effects. I would say teleport in this deck is much more relevant. This guy is just hard to take out. And it's as simple as that. And he beats down, honestly, I think one of the top legends to get for this faction, hands down. He belongs in every single build. You're not going to be upset with him. Unwavering Zeal, truly the best 4-drop damage removal card now. Because it hits random enemies, it's hitting through stealth, right? It's just able to do so much work for you. You're already kind of being the aggressor for the most part, so Unwavering Zeal is really going to be great for you because we don't have any real removal in this deck. It's also going to allow us to chip away at something and then, use Belial's ability to beat it down. So yeah, I've just been super happy playing 2 of it. And you do play quite a bit of stratagems, as you might notice, because we're going to be able to draw so many troops. And this is my guy. This is my avatar right now. Deathwing Knight. I love this card. He just bonks you as hard as he possibly can, and then probably bonks you again. So this thing, it has like some of the stats that I used to hate for the Tyranids for the Vanguard unit. The fact that this can come in, bonk them, they're going to have to clear it. It's going to take quite a bit of work unless they are like Orcs or Eldar or Ultramarines, or I'm sure there's other ones out there, but just really good ranged flankers. You can heal this back up with the rock, right? Like I was talking about earlier, you can Deathwing Assault this thing. I can't tell you how many times I will have Deathwing Assault in my hand, draw this off the top, hit them for 5, and that I will say the AI on this is a little weird. My understanding is that like 90% of the time it's going to hit the Warlord. But what I found is that if there's a unit, like let's say the Apothecary, I'll throw that up there in the video too. I remember distinctly that there was just the Warlord, just the Apothecary out, and the Knight killed the Apothecary. So I think that it will pick times where it can clear a particular unit and not take more damage than the Warlord would provide. That's the trend that I seem to notice. I'm sure maybe Tyler can clarify this. he's my guy for rules and game operations. But really what this guy can do is hit for 5, Deathwing Assault, hit for 7, right? So this can be a 12-point life swing, essentially out of nowhere on 7 to 8 energy, depending on if you've gotten to reduce this guy's cost. What are you going to do? So unless you're running a bunch of Vanguard like the Estra Militarum, this guy is just beating down. You heal him, he gets Vanguard. I will say the Vanguard graphic and all of the graphics on the teleport units are messed up. They don't really show the full graphics, so just be wary of that because I've made that mistake myself. But I love this card. He just goes bonk. That's all I can say. So we've got 2 of the Deathwing Knight, Ravenwing Ancient, just a great flanker. Gets a little bit of value as well. If you're ahead, if you get to pump other vehicles, wonderful. But really, this guy is just a cheap, relatively cheap, efficient flank unit, and I really think that this deck loves that sort of thing. Ravenwing Talisman Master. I love this card. I know some people have said they priored other legendaries over this thing. I really think that the units, so it's Lazarus, Talon Master, and Ezekiel, I think. All of them just have such great value to them, right? They all are a really good stat stick, plus very relevant abilities. This giving flank to your other vehicles does come into play sometimes with the other Ravenwing. And the agenda, it comes up way more than you would think. And I've had people play out like, a Warp Talon, and then I swoop in with my Talon Master, hit it for 3, reveal it, kill it, clear it with my Warlord, right? I love this card. It's not going to be like a game winner like Deathwing Assault can be, but this thing is just such a good. It's just an absolute Ravenwing speedster of value. It's got everything here. You got the book, you got the gun, the sword, everything you could need packed into this wonderful speeder. So I've just loved this card. Deathwing Strike Master. This guy is just obviously, again, a big stat stick. We don't have a lot of removal in this faction. The teleport is extremely relevant. Getting a nice little health, getting some permanent stats, and the fact that this thing just beats face very hard is just great. You're not going to be terribly pleased when you don't get to teleport him, but again, you've got Deathwing Assault to trigger those later, or Lazarus to trigger those later. So I just think that he does such a great job as a huge stat stick. Speaking of Ezekiel, this is, to borrow from Avalon, this is what the 6-drop, and now I'm blanking on the name, wanted to be, right? Ephriel Stern. It's 6 energy, it's got huge stats, but it's got camo and shield, so that it can't just get flanked out and provide no value. And this thing it could just sit there, and you just camo it, right? Sort of like Chaos style, and you just get this value from Master and Terramancer, where you can just kill something. The quest points, again, don't really matter in this deck, but dealing 3 to 5 to their face, or to a unit that you can then clear for 3 energy, great, we'll take it. And then you get to beat them for 7 when you're living the dream, so Ezekiel is just an absolute house. And then, speaking of houses, as you notice, we have quite a few legendaries in this deck. Deadly Hunters is the best way to come back in the game. When you are behind, this will reset the board 99 times out of 100. And that's really, really important. Sometimes I've been able to go Deadly Hunters into Deathwing Assault, which is obviously pretty insane high roll on 10 energy. But yeah, this card is excellent. It is in every build. So again, when I say every build for a legendary, good sign to make sure that you've got a copy of that in your deck. Samael. I don't think this is in every build. This is probably just reserved mostly for Belial and for Azrael. But again, this guy is obviously a house. This takes out some of the most problematic units in the game, lives to tell the tale, and draws you a card. So Samael, I don't think is necessarily like what I would prioritize like first, because I think you've got quite a lot of stuff at the top of the curve that's still pretty good. But Samael is our curve topper. He is again a ton of value packed into a really, really scary unit. And if you start to loop him with his talent, Master of Maneuver, you can bounce him back to your hand and then play him for 4 and then do it all again. It's really nuts. So this is jam-packed with all of the best, I would say, kind of teleport, beat stick cards and legendaries. So that is Belial Beatdown. Let's actually get into the games. Okay, we're going to start with Gorjang here. This is actually a matchup I've played quite a lot this last week. I don't know why everyone's on Gorjang, maybe because of Junith. That would make sense. And also, I think he does decently well into... my cat is nudging me, of course, while we're playing some Dark Angels. I think he does pretty well into our build, and we're not going to mull anything here because we just want to make sure we have all of our teleporters in our deck. That's a really important thing. And then we draw Deathwing Assault, which is always great to see. But yeah, I think this matchup can go either way, and I've had to really learn how to play it better. But the fact that we can trade into Gordrang, it's just a thing of beauty, you know? And that's what we're going to kind of do as much as possible. So we're just going to be trading back and forth here. But because we've got 3 energy, we draw the Deathwing Knight, which is a little sad to see this early. But Speeder is going to be a problematic unit for them, generally. So toss him out. Gets the Extractor Rig into a flanker here to actually clear it out, which is honestly not bad. Because we're going to be able to clear that easily. Get a little backsplash. And I think Gordrangs always are hitting for the most part. They've got better sustain than we do. And they can have some pretty nasty late games. And here I know I want to clear. I'm going to slay first just to see what I draw, right? Because I could draw the 4-drop Terminator. So you just want to make sure you're sequencing properly because you don't want to miss out on value. And very happy to see no mucking about on my Librarian. That is not that scary of a unit. So not too worried about that. If I had a nice 3-drop to play here, I might not play the Deathwing. But because I do, I'm just going to play him. And I pass because really for me, I don't have a lot of expendable health. Gordrang does because of the healing, right? Just gets to play cards like Scarboy. So I usually won't hit in this matchup unless I'm very far ahead on board or I use my ability. So gonna get to trade some nasty damage there, and then I'm just gonna play out the Strike Master because now there's 2 massive units that they have to deal with. So it's gonna be able to kill the Strike Master. But then we've got Unwavering Zeal and the Rock next turn, which I think is the best line. And we have Inner Circle to set up our turn after that. So Zeal is perfect here. Kills everything. Gonna get a little bit of the chip damage off of the explosions. And we get to live the dream. Right, and I could have used Master of the Deathwing here, but I opt for the Rock, and I think that's correct. Obviously, applying more pressure, you can do it in a few different ways, but if I can take the time to heal a bit against Gordrang and keep an annoying unit alive, you know, hoping that they don't have another Squig Buggy, I feel like that's correct, but I think you could have played it. You could have also hit for 4 instead. So we have plenty of cards to draw when they have to play to the board like this. So for me, I'm like, yeah, I can go a little bit later into the game. I don't think that's that big of a deal. So here I'm going to slay first, see what I draw. And then we're going to use our flankers. And I know that we are going to get Will of Gork if they have it. But I can't slow up on pressure. I just need to present lethal so that they have to Will of Gork. And then I get to beat down their face if I want to afterward. They don't, because they don't have enough energy to do that. So, yeah. So there's the Will of Gork. Force that out. That's good. We got to draw an extra troop last turn, so we still got a decent hand size here. I don't know that I would have hit in that scenario as Gordrang. We draw the Terminator, so we're going to get that little bit of chip damage. We're going to be able to play out Lazarus as well and hit them. And there's not much with a no mucking about gone, with 1 Will of Gork gone. It's going to be really hard here. The best thing we could have done was have the +5 heal, stun the Terminator, or use no mucking about, hope that they could live to see the next turn. But this is just not going to be enough here. They're able to clear out Lazarus, but we're going to beat them down for a minimum of 5 here, and that's going to be GG. Got the Unwavering Zeal on top of it. So more than enough. And yeah, just deployed threats, kept our life total healthy, and had plenty of pressure throughout the game. If you're ever able to deploy 2 problematic threats against Gordrang consistently, or Orcs consistently, it's going to be hard, because no mucking about's only going to hit 1. And yes, they can pump to take out some others, but that's also going to be tough. So let's get into the next one. All right, into Swarmlord. And again, I would just encourage you to mulligan any of your teleport cards out of your hand, right? Because they're just going to have much better value drawn in your deck. So happy to keep Unwavering Zeal, obviously, into Tyranids. I mean, the fact that this clears those pesky Gene Stealers is pretty great. And then Ravenwing Speeder is Swarmlord's Nightmare, so pretty good. We do end up getting a Deathwing Terminator, which is always sad to see, but it is what it is. So we're just going to start off with our 4-for-1 trade against Swarmlord, which is just so nutty that we can do that to that Warlord. So they don't have a 2-drop, which is good. No infinite biomorphology is obviously going to be a lot less scary. We get to plant the Speeder, which they're going to hate to see. And then I'm just going to trade health because I know that I can be the aggressor in this matchup. I've got pretty solid removal in my hand. I've got stealth myself. We've got Deathwing Assault to set up later to just continue the pressure. And they have a really good unit here, which is problematic. But with Ravenwing's ability and our ability, it allows us to really make pretty quick work of the Carnifex. So we get that free ping to reduce the life total on that armored unit. We get to deal 3 here with only taking 2. And then we get to play out Taman. So it's really... Could I have played out Terminator? Sure, but then it's going to get cleared. This way they're kind of presented with, and they end up doing it, they basically take the trade with the Carnifex on the Ravenwing, which is like... So we only took 2 from that Carnifex, and the Ravenwing basically killed it itself. It's pretty nice for a 3-drop. Then here, we're just going to keep plugging along, putting out pressure, and curving out with our Master of the Deathwing. Here, we're just going to beat. We're going to hit with Taman for 3 damage. And we've got the Unwavering Zeal for when we need it. And here, because Librarian has a shield, and this particular faction has to attack to clear things, it's going to be annoying. Can't really even do too much here to. I mean, I think taking off the shield would have been reasonable, but they're going pretty all in on the Gene Stealers, which is not a bad plan. So, and I elect to draw because I want this Librarian to stick around. We draw a double Deathwing Knight, which is a little sad because it would have been sick to have a Deathwing into a Deathwing. And as you can see, this does show the Vanguard graphic, but it's very small. So you just have to remember that this actually does have Vanguard now. I don't know why it doesn't highlight the whole card. Must be some of the coding with the new cards, so I'm sure they'll fix that in the balance patch. And I could see Dark Angels getting nerfed as well. I think their units are really strong. I think if you took down a couple of the stats, it wouldn't be... it would be understandable. I'm not really advocating for it, honestly. I think that they're great. I do think that they bully other factions pretty well. And honestly, we have lethal here, as I'm just chatting. Just Ancient Reliquary, hit for 7, hit for 4. So, I think that in certain matchups, it's not even close. And that is somewhat problematic. So, they're just very versatile. They have a lot of stats. They put out a lot of pressure, so they might need a little bit of toning down. But it's still early days. It's been about a week. But I do think that they are pretty strong. So let's get into the last game. And last, but certainly not least, we've got Balduco's Terror of this Season Junith build. That Shrigma and other folks from BJ's Alliance have just... I think, hit crazy numbers, 95% win rate, stuff like that. But I will say, just a little preview of my meta video, I think Belial and Azrael in particular do fairly well into Junith, both of them. And then I would say Azrael a little bit better into Erica. But I do think that they genuinely can bully out sisters, which is hard to do. But this is perfect, right? With these rocks, we get to opt for Sergeant Taman's. We're also on the play against this, right? So this is very, very ideal circumstances. We're going to get to set the tempo we're going to prevent Balduco from preying early on. And it's really just going to allow us to, you know, continue to put sisters on the back foot, which is what you have to do in order to beat them. So, pretty ideal start. We just go double Taman off the rock. He's going to have to clear. And this is pretty great. Guidance of the States into good old Astrid is pretty hefty. Well, we're able to clear. No big deal. Not really going to be able to do too much with our Slay trigger here. But we can set something up next turn. And hopefully it's something good. And here we just take the Ancient. Just some of our value 3-drops plus Ancient. But Ancient, you know, flank obviously into Sisters is quite strong. And there's the Rhino, but because we were on the play and putting them on the back foot, Balduco only gets 1 and has 0 faith, right? So this is just obviously a more ideal scenario, but this is how you contend with Sisters, right? Because they are so strong. And their early game is honestly still just fine. It used to be really bad, but now it's just not that bad. And here I just say, I can't clear your unit. It's going to get shielded. Let me just stop you from praying. That's a scenario where I would stop off and do that. And this is where things get dicey. Sacred Rose comes out. And it's funny because I used to think that card didn't even need to be wasn't needed. But it is just so good because Sacred Rose Sisters are so good. So yeah, here, we're going to take the Slay. See what we draw. Draw Strike Master, unfortunately. And then really all we can do is just maximize our energy every turn. So we play our 4-drop Terminator. And Balduco's Retort is a nice Zephyr to clear. And I think it's safe to say we're in trouble here now. Because the prayers are going to go off, the shields are going to go off. And it's going to be a bit of a fight, even in an ideal start scenario. That's why the Sisters are scary. But we rip the perfect card in Deadly Hunters. And like I said, this is just going to bring the board back to 0, which is exactly what we need to do to then try and push through till the end of the game. So we just use all of our flanking Death Knights to get in there. Or Black Knights. There's a lot of Death, Black, Dark stuff going on, so. Still learning the names here. So obviously this board dies very, very easily. But that's okay. And we do get a secret put in our deck, which is relevant, as the game goes longer. And then Spirit of the Martyr, going to clear everything out, but honestly, also Balduco is taking damage. So it's very efficient for him to do that, of course. But I'm not terribly upset that it's just that plus a sister. And here the Unwavering Zeal just kind of does exactly what I wanted to, right? Clear the unit, stop there, heal, take 3, allows me to play Master of the Deathwing and hit and play Taman. Sure, I could have, used my Slay and played like Strike Master. But to me, if I can just keep them off of praying, off of having units that can benefit from, Conviction of Faith or whatever it is, to me, I prefer that. It's obviously into this response now, it's going to be harder, right? Because they have the pretty hefty Sacrosanct that I have to chew through. But we actually do draw the Smothering Decree that got put into our deck, which is pretty lucky. I will say that. We get to use our Master of Deathwing. Yes, we're going to take some damage here, but again, it's going to allow us this. And I choose not to get the Slay trigger here, right? That was intentional. I want to get the healing from the Smothering. I prefer to have that on Taman and myself because I do want to keep my life total in a decent range. And here I go for the Speeder, and that's because I want to set up the Death Knight into Deathwing Assault. I think it goes back and forth. I could have obviously played the Deathwing Knight. Might have been a little greedy for me not to. But into Flagellant, it actually would have been kind of annoying. They would have cleared it pretty easily. with their response. So you never know, right? But I think it's just good to think about what is the logic of the play that you have. And for me, it was like, I want to just one-shot them with Deathwing Knight plus my ability. So here we draw Strike Master. We start by slaying there to stop the heal and to spread some damage. And we draw into Deathwing Terminator. So we're just going to go double teleportation here. And just create a huge problem for Balduco. And hope that it's good enough. And it ends up being more than enough for Balduco, unfortunately. Yeah. So there's the retreat. And those are the games. So, folks, that's what I got for you today. That is Belial Beatdown. Obviously, some of these games went extremely well, but I gotta say, that's kind of how they tend to go. I will say I've lost to Gordrang. I've definitely lost to Judith. Definitely lost to Erica. Because Erica obviously shuts us off pretty hard, or at least, well, actually kind of our whole kit. So yeah, I shouldn't say half of it, because I'm not getting slay triggers if I'm not hitting. So I think Erica is definitely the worst matchup. I think it's definitely a struggle into Jane for similar reasons. That's why Belial is probably slightly worse in some of the top meta, because Azrael doesn't have to struggle with that as much. However, Belial has incredible staying power. And like I said, the fact that you've got a little bit of heal from the rock allows you to go pretty far into the late game, into 10 energy, 11 energy, and you've still got like a grip of cards in your hand. So I think Belial can still get there. You just have to be very, very careful with your sequencing. Get every ounce of value squeezed out of these troops and squeezed out of your draws and your slay triggers. But it's incredibly fun to play this kind of, I've said this before, this sort of aggro control play style. I think this does remind me of Gruk quite a bit, right? Like you're instead of setting up your hand, you're sort of setting up your draws, and with your slay ability, and then you're going to like deal some damage and apply pressure and kind of slow and speed up. I will say, even though the flankers are good in this faction, I still think that unlike Gruk, you do need to continue to apply pressure as Belial. You can't just sit there and like clear a unit, draw a card, and kind of twiddle your thumbs. Obviously, you're not going to do that anyway, because teleport is like play this card this turn. But yeah, I hope that gives a bit of a sense of the clear power of this faction, but also of this deck. It's been pretty smooth sailing playing Belial and Azrael to almost a healthy 3,300 over the last, I guess, like 4 or 5 days that I've been playing. And I would say play a couple hours each day. And mostly I was playing against human opponents, because I was fully testing the decks. Not really much to learn, I think, playing against bots. But in order just to like help my grind a little bit, I've turned bots on here and there, but of course showing you guys all the person games today. And if you play against real people, you're going to climb with this deck. Let me know in the comments if you want replacements. Like, I understand many people are not going to have this type of, full basically collection on epics and legendaries at this point. That was my own investment into the game. But if I can answer any questions, or I'd love to hear your comments and feedback, of course, down below. So I'll have the deck list there, and just excited to get into more Dark Angels with you guys. We're back with content. I've got some time off on my hands. I'm excited and super ready just to do some streaming and do some videos. So as always, thanks for being here, y'all, and supporting the channel. I will catch you next time.